Malcolm, you can't talk like that. You're a journalist now. Why do you use so much English mixed into your German? Why do you use so much slang? You're an important man. You're in the press club. You're a reporter for the ZDF Foreign Journal. You're with the ARD. You have a podcast on Funk. You have a podcast on SWR Public Broadcasting that comes across wrong when you talk so ghetto. And don't be too funky. You have to be serious, brother. You're black. They already think you're just a prankster. Then you can't also talk like that and give them that. Malcolm, you're a lion. I swear I celebrate your outfits and that you are so real. I'm a huge fan because you stand up for us. You make me want to be in the industry too. You got your robes on. Just fuck what those white people say. Just fuck them up. Keep going like this and keep it up. These are two statements that I keep hearing in social media, direct messages, in person. Everyone thinks they're Dieter Bohlen and I'm a DSDS, Germany's Got Talent contestant who eagerly evading their feedback. Basically, they're all guided by one principle. What is respectable? Who is respectable? What is serious? Who do we take seriously? Who's got something going for them and who has kind of an aura of seriousness. As mentioned, I'm a journalist, translator, and presenter. I talk about foreign policy stories in the U.S., in Israel and Palestine, about economic problems in West Africa, about police violence in other parts of the world, about the music industry, social injustice, police violence, racism, sexism, and so on and so on. And there's usually a particular look and a particular way of presenting these topics to exude seriousness. And so this talk is about the principle of respectability. When are you considered serious? When do you get respect and the benefit of the doubt? When are you considered credible? It's about accents, queerness, coding of queerness, hairstyles, gender performance in journalism. But it's also applicable to all other professional sectors. Why do professional speakers need to wear suits or always have the same way of speaking? Why are women supposedly allowed to be more fashionable than men? Which hairstyle is considered neat and respectable? Which slang is appropriate for a journalist? All that this is kind of boxed in, dissected, reprimanded, determined by a rather strict and clear policy that's principle of respectability, or in English, respectability politics. Here's a definition. This definition is in English because this definition has been coined by an Afro-American thinker which can also be used and applied to other social constructs, such as Germany. It's a set of beliefs holding that conformity to prescribed mainstream standards of appearance and behavior will protect a person who is part of a marginalized group, especially a black person, from prejudices and systemic injustices. So it's a strategy for survival. So black respectability politics essentially uses this assumption of same economic conditions for competition. Basically, you can get anything if you just behave the right way, if you turn off certain parts of yourselves or just adhere to a certain norm. So this respectability politics, right? Groups who are affected, for example, by discrimination or just act differently, it assumes that those people are at fault on themselves for the discrimination. This form of respectability is not just related to when you're professional, when you're neat or well cared for, and if you act seriously, but it also has enormous consequences for people who are affected because it's about codes that are not just about norms of respectability, right? So it recreates and maintains these boxes and definitions of respectability. And it makes other people invisible. So let's just have a quick look at an obvious example. So, for example, what do journalists wear? What do speakers wear on the nightly news? So these are all official photos of Tagesschau speakers, the German nightly news and public broadcasting. So we see an enormous diversity of dark black to dark gray, and here some dark blue. All shirts are white, and with a tie, that's where you can really express yourself. I mean, we see the only black person, Michael Palitz, also has the shortest hair. That could be a coincidence. When you see him speak, he also sometimes has longer hair, but it can also be related to different types of stigmatization. For example, that comes from advertisements such as this one, right? So certain types of hairstyles are defined and categorized, stigmatized as uncivilized. I've also experienced that when I've asked myself which kind of hairstyle can I wear when I have certain public appearances, especially when I want to be considered serious. Right. So if I want to be young and hip, then it's great. But if I want to do like a report for public broadcasting about discrimination or exploitation of working migrants in Saudi Arabia, then maybe in the UAE, then it's maybe not that great. Then here's a picture of the women, the female speakers at Tagesschau, and here we can see color is permitted. We have longer hair, we have shorter hair. You can see there's a difference. There are clear gender roles, gender stereotypes. Sometimes people say, oh, media is so colorful, so diverse, incredibly progressive, and the old white guy, the poor white guy can't get into that. But to be honest, these are pretty old-fashioned gender stereotypes that are also being reproduced by our colleagues at Tagesschau. There's a dichotomy. The man is calm, simple, ranging from dark gray to dark blue, and the woman that can't wear too much makeup, but has to have some color, needs to introduce a bit more glamour into the whole affair. But what happens to men who maybe want some more color? What about women who maybe want something simpler, want to wear a suit, or men who want to wear a dress? Are they not competent speakers for the news? Don't they also deserve equally to read the news for Germany? Isn't it also important for us to see that you can also exude competence if you break out of these predefined gender categories? So I think, yes, that needs to change, but that people who really don't fit, because right now people who don't fit these boxes at all just don't have space. Okay, so now we also have a picture from the Press Club, another German TV show. You see we have the moderator who permits herself some color, and the guests who essentially all wear a type of suit to exude seriousness. And I know what that is essentially exude, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm a serious person. Okay, so where's the space for hairstyles and clothes beyond these norms, these white European norms? You rarely see people who kind of break free from these categories. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm a journalist myself. I get comments once in a while, but maybe that's also because of the way I present myself. That's not a deliberate rebellion. I don't just kind of want to be like a colorful butterfly. I just wear clothes. I just dress the way I like to dress, and I don't think that should take away from my credibility, which is also interesting. Because the colors these are usually colors that only women reporters should be allowed to wear. But I just took that for myself and decided, for example, when I did Press Club, I got an enormous number of messages just because of the shirt, the colorful shirt. And so I asked myself, why is this new? Where do these codes come from? And where do these markers that exude seriousness come from? So here are pictures from Internationales Frühschoppen, which is a German show from the 60s that was the predecessor of the Press Club. And here you can see it really was a club of mostly old white men. A lot of the time they were drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes. We can see there's one woman here who is also essentially conforming to this male code. So where does this suit come from? Where do these norms come from? So this black business suit that I mentioned already comes from a white European tradition. The suit I already mentioned is called suite in French and comes from the word follow because the trousers and shirt follow each other, are matched. So it originated in England in the 17th century and was meant for men, white adult males. Today, it's kind of considered the ultimate symbol of seriousness across the world. And so you can see that reproduced everywhere because you grew up with that. You think that's how you get a job, that's how you get an apartment, that's how you can have your voice be heard that discriminate in a world that discriminates people who deviate from these norms. So obviously this phenomenon is much bigger than news broadcasts. It runs through everyday life. You can see it when you look at politicians. We can see that these people maybe cover up the fact that they're insecure, or maybe it's not really about what they're really saying, but it's about how you're presenting yourself. Are you exuding seriousness and competence? And I really think being authentic and being true to yourself can also be expressed in your clothing. These politics of respectability, it's a survival strategy because there's a lot of negative cliches. It can also be expressed in things such as voice. So, for example, when you work in journalism, I got to know one person who wanted to be a news speaker but has a lisp and was told, well, you sound too much like a queer. And so that person wasn't allowed to read the news. And then I heard from another colleague who was told that they had a voice that was too female, but you needed a dark baritone male voice. And someone once explained that to me, a language coach, who said that it's biologically that way. When the voice is low, then it exudes patience and calm, and then based on pseudoscience, people get discriminated against. So still the case that in a lot of radio stations, women are not supposed to be presenters together or one after another, that there always needs to be a male voice. But when you essentially conform to that, we have the problem that the quality of our products goes down because we can't hear the voices from all these other people who could present the information as competently if we sort people based on what is considered serious or respectable. And it's the same thing with accents. So someone who conforms to this basically has a choice between two options. Either you confirm a cliche or you contradict a cliche, like a stereotype. So a person, for example, who is black and who works in an office like that knows that there is a stereotype, hypothetically, that black people always listen to really loud music. And then the person will specifically listen to calmer music. Or, for example, East Germans there's stereotypes that they can't speak proper German, then they will really just put in all the effort to not even have the hint of the East German accent and sound as high German as possible. And that has clear consequences for your own psychological well-being and also how we connotate these different types of expression. And this same dichotomy about how you can only react to a stereotype, that's not just about voices, but also exists for people who maybe have a different gender or sexual identity from just being straight and cis. For example, here are actors from Orange is the New Black. So there's this dichotomy between respectable feminine lesbians and butch women who don't fit gender roles as well. One interesting example is the dead person, Daniel Kübelberg, who we knew that way, who died as a woman. And when they were a contestant on Germany's Got Talent, they were considered kind of the interesting, colorful, strange bird. And when they changed their gender expression, people talked about how they had become respectable and sexy. So you get rewarded for being respectable, and if you present yourself in a way as what society considers respectable. What you can see here is not a recipe for a milkshake. These are pictures that symbolize how, when it comes to racism, respectability matters. We have a banana, we have Oreo. The fact that these concepts exist is already very telling. A banana is a person who might look East Asian, but is white on the inside, the same way banana is yellow on the outside and white on the inside, right? So acts white, conforms to white coats, and the Oreo is the according thing for black people, so black on the outside, white on the inside. That's a reality that a lot of colleagues of mine are affected by, and that doesn't mean that there is a single expression of being Asian or being black, but it means that there is a constant conforming, a process of conforming, or a cultural, or that there's a whitening of certain ways of acting, certain types of behavior to advance professionally, to be considered respectable and serious. That's something that sounds maybe banal, but it has enormous implications and consequences for people who are affected by racism. These terms are evidence of a problem that we really need to have a conversation about, because this definition of who's considered serious also determines who we believe in front of a court, who we believe when someone reads the news, or who is believed when you apply for an apartment. There you also need to show that different types of behavior, gender expressions, clothing can stand for seriousness and respectability. Here's a very telling example what kind of consequences this can have. So on the left, we have a singer called Ronja Malzheim, and on the right, we have the black politician whose name I just need to double check. Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, was nominated for it. She wears a hairstyle that we call dreadlocks in Germany, and she really aims for this hairstyle to be considered credible. Where there's another musician who wears that same hairstyle to represent kind of being very open, very progressive. So it really matters which context you're in for how certain types of expressions are connotated, and what kind of connotations people have for those, and that really affects how people react to them.
Now, we want to talk about passing. That's Marianne Rosenberg. She's a famous singer, but she hits. She's like she wanted to be really serious. There's the musician Elena Ferreira. She's a Greece person from Albanian sources, and she changed her name so it couldn't be seen that she comes from Albania, to be more serious. And we can also see this with people who work in the music industry that have some kind of transition. At first, they're like on the one side, and they want to be successful as a folk singer. The name is changed, the hair is done in a different way to be serious, taken seriously. There's a journalist, Vanessa Wu. She's called Van, and she gave her the name Vanessa. She wanted a real name. Her real name wasn't supposed to be real and to be respectable. Nowadays, she regrets this decision, but it's kind of a scar that stays there, and it's a sign of the situation that we have to talk about this in our society, and what is serious and what's not. There's so many strategies to pass, to change the language, to change the clothes, to change the name, to just deny the identity. I don't think it's the best way to do it. In this society, to live without is really important to get over this. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever eaten pizza? Can you raise your hands, please? So, have you ever eaten frozen pizza? Have you ever eaten pizza in an Italian restaurant? I guess that the pizza in the Italian restaurant was better, and now I can tell you why. Because it's more authentic. It's made by yourself, it's real, the colors, the taste. All from this pizza, you can taste it yourself. It's made with love, and it's not like uniformed. It's not coming from a machinery. And we should also do that with jobs and careers, with individuals. It's not really helping to be conform with everything. So I want to make sure that newscasters and journalists could have like perm, or they can have makeup on. Here's the Annette Dittert from the ARD. I love her outfits. There's Riccardo Simonetti for ZDF. There's not. He has a really special profile, but it can actually show professionality, and is also, well, belongs to everything else. Everything is better when it's authentic. Thanks for your attention. I would ask you to ask questions if you want to. Maybe you want to know something in the editorship, what kind of experiences we have. If you have a different opinion, we're like, okay, what the heck is he talking about? There's just like it's not like it's serious, but this is my costume. I want you to use this impulse and to interact with us. There's a microphone out there. Just raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Hi, and thanks for this wonderful talk. I think during this talk, I always thought, oh, no, that's not right for me. But sometimes I see men in suits in my life, and I think, okay, no, I don't trust him. Because from news, and I'm just like thinking, okay, people wearing suits, they do a lot of bullshit, and I don't trust it anymore. I think, yeah, it's kind of like, dropped. No. It's one more reason to just throw away these bloody suits. Anyone should wear how he or she or whatever wants to. This is the problem. People can say so many great things, but they look like whatever, like a vagabond or colorful bird, and they are not trusted. For you, it's completely the opposite. So if I'm coming to you with a suit, I couldn't just drop it. Society, for example, like politicians, they have these classic male suits, and this protects like seriosity. Even for women, all these suits are possible. It's basically like a cliche, and it's usually made for the old male white man, basically. Any more questions? Over there on the left side, fifth row. Yeah. You've been amazing. What I want to ask you, how do you achieve all this energy to be so authentic in all these rooms, to being like you are, to know that people could come and to ask you, why are you looking like this? Why are you authentic? Why aren't you wearing like stuff from our culture? How can you do it? How do you do it?
Thanks for the praise. I think that you definitely need to do your job well, and you just have to have confidence in yourself that you know you're competent, right? And then it shouldn't play a role. But yes, of course, it's a risk, because I definitely think you're being watched more closely. You kind of set yourself apart. That's why people will look at your work even more closely. And the best protection is to be as prepared as well, to be as good as well, and also tell yourself, I mean, we all just trying to get through things, and nobody, just because they're wearing a suit, is better or worse. But I mean, the energy and strength really comes from preparation and knowledge into the content and the information that I'm conveying. If you know what you're talking about, then it's also maybe in quote-unquote easier to just go your own way. But yeah, it's not easy, and sometimes I also think if you're just very conform to norms very well, then it might also be more, you might advance more smoothly. But I also have this shape of kind of dignity for myself, I guess, and it's just not something that I can really just really can't do it. Maybe it's also a moral ethos, a conviction. And then, I mean, clothing also needs to look great and need to feel good. And so really ask your friends, do you have anything really fresh? So for example, for the first time, I've done my nails. And so I I'm like typing on my phone, and it's just like a bit of color, some kind of energy in my life, just trying things, and then you can do, and then you get weird looks, but then you tell yourself, no, it looks so amazing, I'll just keep doing it that way.
There's another question in the first row. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for this cool talk. Another question. Sometimes I'm in situations where I have to wear a stupid suit and I'm really annoyed by this, but I'm just doing it because I have the experience that as soon as I wear something else, I have to talk about my clothes. So instead of the thing I really wanted to talk about, okay, just wear a suit so you can talk about your topics.
Yeah, welcome to the lives of many women who need to talk about their clothes all the time. Oh, great dress, great jewelry. So, I mean, maybe you can also bear with it for once in a while. I mean, that's the school uniform principle when everyone wears the same. But basically, it's not like in reality, it's not actually like that, right? Because it's kind of a corset for men, where men have this seriousness advantage. For example, here we have, for context, there's the young black woman and the old white man. And then just get over it, just wear something cool anyway. And I don't know. You just have to, that's a pill you have to swallow. And yeah, of course, sometimes you'll get comments like that. But to be honest, isn't that also nice? Then, because that's then a good conversation start, and you could say, oh, thank you. Then we can maybe start about that. And then the person thinks, oh, that person's totally incredibly competent and remembers you. Or maybe you can have green hair, have a tattoo in your face. Then you already have something that is almost part of your brand, and people remember you.